Hey everybody, your boy Zach is back to attack another feature film, and today we're going to be discussing Aquaman. Aquaman is the next superhero film in the DCEU. It follows a boy named Arthur Curry, who is born half human, half Atlantean, who grows up and ends up having to find the lost trident of King Atlan that heralds control over the sea to stop his rival half-brother King Orm of Atlantis from waging war with the people of the sea and the people of the surface. Now the DCEU has had some trouble getting their head above water, pun fully intended, because so far they've only given us just a bunch of crap films, except maybe Wonder Woman, but even that film I just had some issues with, especially like the villain and just I don't know, I didn't like it as much as the world seemed to. I mean, everybody else seems to just love that movie to death, but me, honestly, there's just some problems with that one. So, so far, so not good. But then came Aquaman. A movie I went into thinking we were going to get another Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman, or at best, another Wonder Woman film. You know, something like on that level. And boy was I wrong. This movie was insane. I loved every minute of this movie. It blew me away. The film looked beautiful, and as of right now, I've seen this film twice, and I plan to go see it a third time with some friends here soon. And I had to at least see it a second time. I didn't know I was gonna go see it a third time, but whenever after I saw it the first time, I was like, I need to see it again just to enjoy the visuals, because this movie looks beautiful. It was so good. It was just fun to watch. Speaking of which, if you miss out on seeing this film in theaters, you are doing yourself a disservice. The cinematography in this film was the best I've ever seen in any film, period. I can't think of one single film that I've seen, for me personally, and I've seen a lot of films, I can't think of one single film that was handled quite like Aquaman was handled. If you know any, by all means, comment them down below and I will go watch them, because I want to experience another film like this. Like, being in theaters and watching the film, like it was just, it's a whole new experience whenever you're in like a big screen and watching it that way. It was just so cool. The trailers looked cool as shit. And so that's what got me to go see this film, was the trailers. The scenes in the trailer, like the trench dive and the other scenes that they didn't even show in theaters, like, it's what makes this movie so amazing. Like, they always had the camera moving, always had it following people or zooming in on someone or pulling back, or it was just cool. Like, you got to follow these characters through this underwater adventure, and it's amazing, guys. It truly is. I can't get over it. I can't get over the cinematography, like, at all. I'm gonna keep babbling a little bit more. The scene where they're in Italy and Mera is running from goons and Aquaman is taking on Black Manta. It's just cool the way they went from one fight to the other, from one chase to the other. It was fun to actually view a movie for something other than characters or story, but for actual viewing purposes. Like, I've just never been on a fun cinematic ride like this before in my life whenever it comes to films. I haven't, and so that's why I keep raving about it, honestly. And probably it seems like I'm like blowing this out of proportion or whatever, but like, for me, I can't get over it. I don't know why. I really love the visuals in this film, man. Now, possibly the reason I missed out on James Wan, the director of this film, is probably the fact that he's more into directing horror films, such as Insidious and The Conjuring. And if you watched my last review, you know I haven't really fucked with horror films much, but I've missed out on this guy, and that is a problem that I soon plan to rectify. So that's probably why I've missed out on this guy's work, because now that I've seen this dude, it's a problem that I've missed this guy, because if his other films are anywhere near as good and directed, then I am gonna go buy them so I can try to get another James Wan experience like Aquaman gave me. And the awesome choreographed fights coped with the cinematography. It was just dope to see on screen, especially the epic underwater battle where they had like all these different underwater creatures going at each other. And it was very CGI, but like I didn't care because it was epic, and just the way the camera was going on through that scene as well it was awesome. And it made the fight even better. If the camera work wasn't as good as it was, that fight wouldn't be as cool as it was. I don't think. It's all in the camera. It's all in the camera. It really is. It literally is all in the camera. Just like you. But like back to the choreographed fights, like I just remember like whenever Aquaman was fighting Black Manta, I just remember the way that they were fighting. I was like, wow, that is well choreographed. Like I can see this. Like there's something there. Like, and just like especially the scene where Aquaman is fighting Black Manta and Mera is fighting some other goons, and like they do like this overhead shot from one fight to the other, like I was saying earlier. It was just that the way those fights were choreographed, and specifically is something that stood out to me. I just remember watching that and just being like, wow, that was cool. I'm gonna remember that. Just not just the way the camera was following those scenes, but also just the way they fought. Like I could tell that they went into this film and really thought about like how they were gonna fight. Like they really thought about it. Like it wasn't gonna be like, all right, we're gonna have them fight, all right, this. Like they did, like they actually cared. As for the characters, I thought they were very well written for the most part. I think Mera was good. I think maybe she could have had a little bit more character development, or just a little bit more of something to do with her character, but I liked her. Volko was cool, played by Willem Dafoe. I liked his training scenes with the younger Arthur Curry. And also Aquaman's parents. We got freaking Jango Fett. We got Jango Fett in this film. That is so dope. Which, you know, like whenever I saw him in the trailers and then like I saw this film, I was thinking like, that's Jango Fett. That's Jango Fett. But now, like anytime I see him in Star Wars, I'm gonna be like, that's Aquaman's dad. Like, I'm gonna definitely remember him more in this role than I would in Attack of the Clones. I felt for him. I felt for the mom. I absolutely loved his character in this, and that's good, because I'd rather remember him as Aquaman's dad than that Jango Fett from that god-awful Star Wars movie. That movie was shit. Yeah, I didn't like Attack of the Clones. Come at me. And even Aquaman got some character development throughout the film. His character changed from the beginning to the ending, and it has actually, the character he was starts something for the story at the beginning of the film, and then the character he ends up being at the end of the film resolves something at the end of the film. So it's really cool how they developed this character and interwebbed it with the story. And I thought the villains were fleshed out alright. I think they were fleshed out alright, actually. Whenever it comes to Black Manta, I think he was actually fleshed out pretty well. He was just underutilized is the problem. So whenever it comes to fleshing out that villain, he was good. King Orm, he's more of your just typical bad guy who wants power and wants to take over and be in charge, and that character's alright to have in this film. I enjoyed that character. King Orm was probably my favorite of the two villains, but there's just, you gotta have your characters a little bit more developed, and King Orm just, his character wasn't strictly developed all the way, where Black Manta was. Like, you get to see why he became a villain, how he became a villain because of Aquaman's actions, how he went that route. King Orm, you don't really get much of his backstory or really any of it, and you don't really just get to the nit and grit of that character like you do with Black Manta. So that's really like my problem with the film, is the villains and how Black Manta was underutilized and King Orm was just not fleshed out as well. Between the two villains, I think King Orm was far better in my opinion. He believed himself to be the rightful ruler of the sea, and that Arthur was unworthy, But since he was still of royal blood and still Atlantean, the two brothers had to clash it out and see who would be the true Ocean Master. Arthur is hateful of the Atlanteans, and he seems to be directing this hatred at his half-brother Orm. Whereas Orm, on the other hand, is just straight up blaming Arthur for what's become of their mother. And just seeing these two things come together to fuel the fire that is their feud, it's just really cool to see on screen. I thought Patrick Wilson did a great job in this film. I think he was just an absolute scene stealer for me. I was glued to the screen even more so whenever he was there. I haven't really seen him in much. I saw him in Fargo and a couple of other things, but I definitely going to be following him some more. I know he's in The Conjuring, and that's something I haven't dived into yet. As I've said, I haven't gone into the horror genre, but I'm definitely going to have to. And I really liked him in this. He was so great. I don't know why. I just enjoyed him as King Orm. And yes, you could say King Orm was just kind of the normal, weak, evil, power-seeking villain, and yeah, you're right. But I just think it worked for the story, and I think it worked spectacularly well. I don't think it needed a super fleshed out villain, even though I was saying, yeah, he could have been fleshed out a tad more, and he could have. I just still think his villain worked for the story that they were telling. They didn't really need to necessarily flesh out the character, and so they didn't. They had a lot more things to focus on, honestly. I thought the final confrontation between King Orm and Aquaman was lacking. I think that whenever it comes to this film, they were up at like 2.5 hours of running time, so they didn't really have time to craft a bigger fight scene, but I really would have liked to have seen something more whenever it comes to the brother-on-brother confrontation. I really would have liked that, but what we got was good. I really did like how things were settled between the two brothers, so give it a pass. Even so, Aquaman had to tell the origins and the current story at the same time, and the way they interweaved it with the Vulko's scenes, Willem Dafoe's Vulko character's scenes, I think the way that they shot that, going in and out of the past and present, it was just really cool, and it was really cool. And speaking of Willem Dafoe, I am happy to have seen him in this film. I think he did a great job, and especially it was great to see him in this film because I heard he was supposed to be in Justice League, but because of all the reshoots, they completely cut out all of his bits from that film, so contract-wise, he still had to be in a DCEU film, so they put him in Aquaman, and box office-wise, I think Willem Dafoe came out on top on that deal, so good for him. Now, I keep trying to find something that I disliked about this film. Like, there really wasn't much that I disliked about the film, except just a couple things with the villains. But there is one noticeable thing to me and my brother when we watched this in theaters that stood out, and it took away from the film for me. And that thing is the explosions. There's a total of 4 different explosions that interrupt our characters in this film. Once is good, twice is fine. Past that, it becomes a noticeable trope that you're following. By the 4th time, I wasn't like, oh no, the characters are in danger. I was sitting there laughing with my brother. And honestly, we thought this was like a gag that they were setting up, like they were gonna have Aquaman say, man, why is everything exploding today? Or like, geez, things really are exploding a lot today, don't you think? Just like something stupid like that. And if they had done that, I think I would have like given it more of a pass or like been more lenient about it. But since it wasn't a gag, it was just something that they just did a bunch of times in the film. It really just took me out of it, and it bothered me at least. So, and it's really more of a nitpicky type flaw, really. But it pulled me out of the movie, man. And so it's because of that, and the fact that they didn't address it, because I thought they were going to, and if they had, it wouldn't really be a flaw to me. But because they did, it took me out of the movie, so it's a flaw. And I don't know. I guess it's just a divergent, explosion-filled film. I don't know. Maybe it's the horror filmmaker in James Wan, where he's trying to catch you by surprise or scare you if he can. But honestly, it just kind of seems to me that he doesn't know how to end this scene and get to the next one. So explosion. Yes, I think I'm overanalyzing this, but it did take me out of the film, and so that is just one flaw for me. So if you like superhero films, or you're a fan of the DCEU or the MCU, I say go see this film. And if you aren't a fan of those things, I say go see this film. because this movie is great. It stands alone. It's the best of the DCEU films, and it's honestly better than some of the Marvel films. And that's crazy, because the Marvel films are really tough to compete with when it comes to these DC movies, and they finally got one that was on par with Marvel. And I never really thought I'd see that day, honestly. You don't need to have seen any other films prior to this movie in the DCEU in order to watch this one, because it stands alone by itself. It's an epic ride, both cinematically and story-wise. It'll take you in. It's a fun time at the movies, 100%, and I'm definitely going to buy this on Blu-ray or 4K whenever it comes out, because this movie is so good.
Now, I may have some problems with this film, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying the film overall. It's still a fun time at the movies, and it's a great film. I give this film an 8 out of 10.
But what could be greater than a king?
A hero.
So guys, have you seen Aquaman? If so, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I want to know. And without further ado, fellow Zachalytes, once again, leave your boy Zach a like and hit the subscribe button on your way out, as I would very much appreciate it. With that said, I've been Zachatech. You've been you. Goodbye. I keep throwing this word around, but it was so beautiful. Gosh. I'm gonna beauty overload here.